Hey there, geography nerds and fans of underdog stories. Gather round while we talk about East Timor, a place you might not find on a map without squinting. No judgment, it's really small. Nestled in Southeast Asia, this tiny nation is often overlooked, but its story is nothing short of epic. This little nation, officially Timor-Leste if you're feeling fancy, has a history that's way bigger than its landmass. Despite its size, East Timor has been a significant player in regional history. We're talking centuries of colonization, brutal occupations, and a fight for freedom that would make even the most jaded cynic tear up a bit. From Portuguese explorers in the 16th century to Indonesian forces in the late 20th century, East Timor has seen it all. So, why should you care about a tiny island nation way down in Southeast Asia? Because their resilience and spirit are nothing short of inspiring. Well, because their story is the kind of messed up, inspiring roller coaster ride that deserves a standing ovation, or at least a slow clap. Imagine enduring centuries of hardship and still coming out with your head held high. Plus, it's got everything. European explorers with questionable hygiene, Cold War shenanigans, UN peacekeepers actually keeping the peace. It's basically a history textbook exploded on a beach, and everyone's invited to the party. The blend of cultures and historical events makes East Timor a fascinating case study. Grab your metaphorical passport because we're about to time travel through East Timor's wild ride of a past. From ancient traditions to modern struggles, there's so much to uncover. Buckle up, there's gonna be beaches, bloodshed, and hopefully, by the end of it all, a newfound appreciation for this little nation that could. East Timor's journey is a testament to the enduring human spirit. Picture this. It's the 16th century. European explorers are roaming the seas looking for new lands to, discover, read, plant their flags on. These explorers, driven by the promise of wealth and adventure, braved uncharted waters and unknown dangers, all in the name of glory and spices. The Portuguese, those intrepid seafarers with a taste for spices and a knack for colonization, stumble upon an island already inhabited by shocker people. They were not just explorers but also traders, eager to establish new routes and markets. They called it Timor, divided it with the Dutch, because sharing is caring, right? And thus began Portugal's roughly 400-year stint in charge of what we now call East Timor. This division marked the beginning of a long and complex colonial history. Now, colonial life wasn't exactly a picnic, unless your idea of a picnic involves forced labor, cultural assimilation, and a distinct lack of representation in local government. The local population faced numerous hardships under colonial rule. But hey, at least the Portuguese brought Catholicism and pastel-colored houses, which, let's be honest, do look lovely on postcards. These elements added a unique charm to the island's landscape. For centuries, life in East Timor was a blend of Portuguese influence, traditional Timorese culture, and, well, not much else. This cultural fusion created a distinctive identity for the island. It was like the world forgot this tiny island existed, which, depending on your perspective, might have been a good thing. Isolation often meant fewer conflicts and a slower pace of life. But as with all things in history, peaceful obscurity rarely lasts forever. Change was inevitable, and the island's story was far from over. Fast forward to the 1970s when the Portuguese decided rather abruptly to give this whole ruling other countries thing a rest. They packed up and left, leaving East Timor in a state of uncertainty. Suddenly, East Timor was thrust into a chaotic attempt at independence. The people were hopeful, yet anxious about what the future held. But before the cork could even pop off the celebratory champagne bottle, or, coconut water, their neighbor, Indonesia, decided to liberate East Timor by invading it. Tanks rolled in, and the dream of independence was shattered almost instantly. Because that's what good neighbors do, right? They come over uninvited and take over your house. The next 24 years were, to put it mildly, a bit rough. Life under occupation was harsh and unforgiving. We're talking brutal occupation, human rights violations that would make your stomach churn, and a constant state of fear and oppression. And a whole lot of international community side-eyeing Indonesia. The world watched, but action was slow and often ineffective. Think of it as that awkward family dinner where everyone knows Uncle Indonesia is acting up, but no one wants to confront him directly. The tension was palpable. Through it all, the East Timorese people resisted, clinging fiercely to their identity and yearning for freedom. They organized underground movements, risking their lives for a chance at liberty, wrote poetry about their suffering, using art as a form of resistance and a way to keep their spirit alive. and basically reminded the world that just because a country is small doesn't mean its people don't have a giant-sized will to be free. Their resilience was nothing short of extraordinary. Section 4. The UN to the rescue, peacekeepers, polling stations, and patience, 1999 to 2002. Remember that whole international community side-eye we mentioned? Well, it finally turned into action in 1999. Enter the United Nations, those blue-helmeted peacekeepers with a mandate to, well, keep the peace, and occasionally hand out pamphlets about conflict resolution. After a UN-supervised referendum where the East Timorese voted overwhelmingly, like really overwhelmingly, for independence, things got even messier. See, Indonesia wasn't too keen on letting go, throwing a bit of a tantrum that involved a lot of property damage and violence. Good thing the UN brought their peacekeeping A-game and a whole lot of patience to the party. For the next 3 years, East Timor was basically a giant construction zone, with the UN rebuilding infrastructure, mediating disputes and teaching people how to, govern a country. It was like a crash course in democracy, with a side of demining and trauma counseling. Fun times. Section 5, Independence Day. Now what? 2002 to present. May 20th, 2002. Mark your calendars, folks, because that's the day East Timor finally became an independent nation. Fireworks exploded, tears were shed, and everyone tried to forget the whole recent history of violence and upheaval thing for at least 5 minutes. But like a college grad staring down their first student loan bill, the reality of independence set in pretty quickly. Building a country from scratch, again, isn't easy, especially when you've been through the ringer. There were political growing pains, economic struggles, and the constant challenge of healing the wounds of the past. But you know what? They did it. They built a government, drafted a constitution that shockingly didn't involve the word spice trade, and even started their own wacky political traditions. It's like watching a baby bird learn to fly. There's a lot of flapping, a few near disasters, but eventually they soar. Section 6, East Timor today. Beaches, backpackers, and a bright future. So, where does East Timor stand today? Well, it's still finding its footing, but it's doing so with a resilience and optimism that's straight up inspiring. They've got pristine beaches that would make a postcard jealous, a growing tourism industry, and a youthful population eager to build a brighter future. They're also grappling with poverty, unemployment, and the legacy of their traumatic past. But hey, who among us hasn't had to overcome a few obstacles? The important thing is, they're doing it. They're proving to the world that even the smallest nation can overcome the biggest challenges and come out stronger on the other side. Plus, they've got coffee. And not just any coffee, but some of the finest, most ethically sourced beans on the planet. So, next time you need a caffeine fix, raise a mug to East Timor, the little nation that could, and probably will, achieve amazing things. Section 7. Challenges and cheers, a toast to Timor-Leste. Look, East Timor's story isn't all sunshine and coffee beans. They've still got a long way to go. But here's the thing, they're on their way. They're building a nation, brick by metaphorical brick, and that's something worth celebrating. So, the next time you hear someone say, East Timor, where's that? You can hit them with a condensed version of this essay, you're welcome, and maybe, just maybe, inspire them to learn more about this incredible little nation that's got a whole lot of heart, a killer view, and a future brighter than a Portuguese sunset. Cheers to Timor-Leste!